The city skyline was a razor's edge of neon and steel, 1,000 stories high. My breath burned in my lungs, the wind whipping past my ears as I vaulted from one rooftop to the next. Below, the streets were rivers of light, but up here, it was a world of shadows and echoes. My target was just ahead, a silhouette against the glowing advertisements, a courier with something valuable enough to die for. He was fast, agile, a ghost in the urban jungle, but I was faster. With one last, desperate leap, I tackled him, the impact sending us skidding across the graveled roof. He fought, but it was over. I pried a small silver data chip from his grip. As sirens wailed in the distance, I slipped back into the shadows, the chip burning a hole in my pocket. This was it. This was the start. The chip was a key, and it opened a door to a world of impossible wealth and deadly secrets. My destination, Monaco, the Casino de Monte Carlo, a playground for the world's richest and most dangerous. Stepping inside was like entering another dimension. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto velvet carpets, and the air buzzed with the quiet hum of money changing hands. I was no longer Agent Alex. I was a high roller, dressed in a tailored suit with a story to sell. My target was a man named Julian Croft, a rogue financier who had laundered billions for a shadow organization known only as the Syndicate. He held the next piece of the puzzle, and I had to get it. I found him at a high-stakes poker table, surrounded by an entourage of board models and watchful bodyguards. His eyes, cold and calculating, met mine across the green felt. He smiled, a predator sizing up new prey. "Care for a hand?" he asked, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. I nodded, pulling out a chair. This wasn't just a game of cards. It was a game of nerve. I had to blend in, to become one of them, to earn his trust just enough to get what I came for. The chips clicked, the cards were dealt, and the tension in the room became a physical presence. Every glance, every bet was a move in a much larger game. I had to read him, not just his cards, but his intentions, his fears. I was looking for an opening, a moment of weakness. Hours bled into one another. The stakes got higher, the crowd thinned, until it was just me, Croft, and his two stone-faced guards. I was winning, but not by too much. Just enough to be interesting, just enough to make him curious. He was good, but his arrogance was his tell. He raised, I called. He bluffed. I saw through it. The pile of chips in front of me grew, and the smile on his face tightened. He was losing control, and he didn't like it. "You have an impressive read, my friend," he said, his voice losing its earlier charm. "Where did you say you were from again?" I gave him a practiced, easygoing smile. Does it matter? The cards don't care about a man's history. The final hand was dealt. It was all in my full house against his. Well, against his bluff. As I laid my cards down, his face turned to thunder. He had lost, and lost big, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the humiliation. "Looks like luck is on my side tonight," I said, reaching for the pot. That's when everything went sideways. Croft slammed his hand on the table, not in anger, but as a signal. The room exploded into chaos. His guards drew their weapons, the table flipping over, sending cards and chips flying. I dove for cover, the sound of gunfire echoing through the opulent hall. The game was over. The real fight had just begun. I kicked a heavy mahogany chair into one of the guards, sending him stumbling back as I drew my own weapon from beneath my jacket. The second guard opened fire, shattering a priceless vase behind me. I returned fire, using the chaos as cover, weaving between ornate columns and panicked patrons. Croft was already making his exit through a private door, a briefcase clutched in his hand. That was my prize. I couldn't let him get away. I neutralized the guards with a series of precise, non-lethal shots. I needed information, not bodies. Sprinting after Croft, I burst through the service corridors, the glamour of the casino replaced by the cold, sterile reality of steel and concrete. An alarm blared, a high-pitched shriek that seemed to follow me down the maze-like hallways. I could hear his frantic footsteps just ahead. He was running scared. He burst out into a loading bay, straight towards a black sedan, engine already running. I was closing the distance, my lungs on fire. Just as he reached the car door, I launched myself forward, tackling him hard against the side of the vehicle. The briefcase flew from his grasp, skittering across the wet asphalt. He came up swinging, a desperate, wild look in his eyes. He wasn't a fighter, just a cornered animal. A few quick, efficient moves, and he was on the ground, gasping for air. I picked up the briefcase, but as I turned back, the sedan's tires screeched and it sped towards me. I dove out of the way just in time, the car missing me by inches and disappearing into the Monaco night. Croft was gone, but I had what I needed. Inside the briefcase wasn't money or gold. It was a satellite phone and a flight plan. A private airstrip hidden in the foothills of the Alps. The flight was scheduled for sunrise. I didn't have much time. The intel from the briefcase painted a horrifying picture. Croft wasn't just a financier. He was the keyholder for a weaponized satellite uplink, a system capable of disabling global communications at the flick of a switch. And the buyer, the true mastermind, was someone my agency only knew by a code name. the ghost, an anonymous, untraceable figure who orchestrated chaos from the shadows. As dawn broke, casting a pale gray light over the mountains, I reached the airstrip. It was a secluded, desolate place. A single hangar stood against the backdrop of the rising sun, and parked on the tarmac was a sleek, black private jet, its engines beginning to whine. This was the endgame. I moved silently, a phantom in the morning mist, my senses on high alert. I saw Croft near the jet, nervously handing the satellite uplink, a small, sophisticated device, to a figure cloaked in the shadows of the plane's wing. The ghost. As the figure stepped into the light, I was stunned. It was a woman, her features sharp and intelligent, her eyes holding a chilling calm. She was the one pulling the strings. This was no mere transaction. This was the transfer of a weapon that could bring the world to its knees. I had to act now. I broke cover, sprinting across the open tarmac. "It's over. Step away from the uplink," I yelled, my voice cutting through the rising scream of the jet engines. The ghost didn't even flinch. She simply gave a slight nod to Croft, who paled and scrambled up the stairs into the jet. Her eyes, cold as glacial ice, locked onto mine. "Agent Alex," she said, her voice calm and clear over the engine noise. "I was wondering when you'd show up. You've been ... persistent." She set the uplink device down on the tarmac. "But your persistence ends here." She moved with a speed and grace that was almost inhuman. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. She wasn't just a strategist. She was a highly trained operative, a mirror image of myself. Our first blows met with a sickening crack, a brutal dance under the spinning propellers of the jet. She was my equal in every way, anticipating my moves, countering my strikes. The fight was a whirlwind of motion on the cold, hard ground. We were a blur of black, locked in a desperate struggle for control. The fate of the world was encapsulated in this one device, just feet away. She was relentless, using the environment, the proximity to the jet, to her advantage. I dodged a kick that would have sent me straight into the spinning blades of the engine. The wind from the propellers tore at us, a constant, deafening force. I knew I couldn't beat her in a prolonged fight. I had to end it, and end it now. Feinting left, I drew her in, and as she committed to a strike, I pivoted, dropping low and sweeping her legs out from under her. She hit the tarmac hard, but was already rolling, recovering. In that split second, I wasn't going for her. I was going for the uplink. I dove, my fingers wrapping around the cool metal of the device just as her hand closed around my ankle. She pulled me back with surprising strength, but I held on. With my free hand, I smashed the device against the tarmac. Once, twice. The third time, the casing cracked, and sparks flew. A critical component shattered. It was disabled. A look of pure fury crossed her face for the first time. With one last contemptuous glare, she disengaged, sprinted towards the moving jet, and leaped onto the still-lowered stairs just as they began to retract. I got to my feet, bruised and breathless, the broken uplink in my hand. I watched as the jet lifted off the runway, a black arrow against the morning sky. She was gone. The ghost had escaped. I had won the battle, stopped the immediate threat, but as the plane disappeared into the clouds, I knew with a chilling certainty that the war was just beginning. This was just the first move in a global game of shadows, and I was right in the middle of it. Thanks for watching, and if you're ready for the next chapter, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next.